Hey Nadia, how you doing?
Hey Calvin, I'm doing good. So it looks like it's working today, right?
Yeah, it does look like it's working, and I'm really glad. I'm going to appreciate you a whole lot for not being deterred by the first one and still coming up. You are amazing. Thank you, Nadia.
Oh, no problem. I knew that today we were going to go ahead no matter what, even if we had a technical issue. So I'm glad it seems to be working.
Yeah, it is. How's your day going? Hi, Augustine.
Hi everyone. Um, yeah, not too bad. Racing by. Um, I'm going to be at the London Book Fair next week, so I've got to do some preparation for that.
Hmm?
Just planning how I'm going to speak to authors and publishers around our giveaways platform, and also thinking about what I want to do code wise so that it's easy onboarding while people are at the fair, and so that they can use the discount code that I'm going to be setting up for them.
Awesome.
How's your day been?
Yeah, my day started quite early. I woke up 1 a.m. today. Had an upset stomach, so I decided to use that to my advantage. So
Oh no.
I read, listen to the ALOX, the daily ALOX. There's this app from, I don't know if you know the YouTube
Okay.
ALOX. I've been listening to it for years now.
No.
So yeah, just did that. Also did a lot of code and just finished a community workshop a while ago. And yeah,
Wow.
it's on the duties of a full stack developer. We've been doing this series for 3 weeks now. We started with front end, then back end, and just wrap up with full stack. So it's been like a whole lot going on today.
Wow. And now this show.
Yeah,
So
this
we're just
one.
gonna continue. I love it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, Thank you, Dan, for coming. Augustine, Excel, James, Irene, Nathan, Coder Girl. Please do share the space. We'll probably be starting off exactly 6. So we wanted to start early to see if Twitter was gonna mess with us, but
Play along.
it did not. So we're happy. I'm so excited about this session. Quick spoiler, I told you in our chat that I've prepped a document for this talk. Right, so
Yes.
it's like literally the complete document, like with questions. I'm going to try not to overwhelm you with them, but I have so many questions, and so just get ready, just like
I'm
you've been
ready.
forewarned.
As ready as I'll ever be.
Yeah, of course. So we'll be starting. So please share the space, guys. Let's get more people in here, and we're just going to start on a very amazing note. Nadia is an amazing person. You all
Oh,
cannot just wait to hear the value she's about to drop in here. So whether you're a woman or a
wow.
man, get in here. A ton to learn from Nadia. I've been inspired from just watching her talk. I think I've watched it twice now, and also the spin-off she gave. Ah, you're just so good. When you were like Sherlock Holmes in the talk, and I was like, how did you do that?
Oh,
Yeah,
that
how
one.
did you do?
The debug one.
I was what?
Which one did you watch? The missing method or the vanished variable? Because there are two. I want to make a
Yeah, the
trilogy.
vanishing verbal. It was at
Oh, so the more
Will's
recent
Conf,
one,
right?
the second one. Yes. Okay. Yes. No, it was at
Yeah,
RubyConf.
RubyConf, yeah.
I both at RubyConf. The one that was more recent then,
Wow, I've not seen.
because I did another. That was like the second. So you watched
Oh
the
no.
second. They're standalone. It's like I'm trying to do like almost like a
Mm-hmm.
novel. Like they're standalone, but they also kind of follow on from one another. So some of the characters in the one you watched appeared in the first
Yeah,
one.
for sure.
Yeah. So if you want to watch the other one, you can check that out afterwards as well.
I'm definitely gonna like link everything in here so people could go watch it. Like all your talks I've seen so far, amazing. Even the podcast was great. So yeah, for sure. So I think we should start now. This space is recorded, so anyone coming in late doesn't have anything to worry. It's gonna be on Spotify, Apple Music, as well as YouTube. So let's get it rolling. And first of all, welcome everyone to one of my special guest Twitter spaces, where I invite someone to come share on a particular perspective on what they're doing. Today we have Nadia Odunayo with me. She is the founder, CEO of The StoryGraph. She's gonna do a more in-depth intro. I'm just, trying to lead her in, and I'm really happy to have her here. And as always, toward the end of the session, which we try to cap at an hour, you all could come up and ask your questions. So if you're taking notes, come ask your questions. So without any more further ado, Nadia, please introduce your awesome self.
Hi everyone, I'm Nadia. I am the founder, CEO, and software developer of The StoryGraph, which is a book tracking and recommendations app. So we help you choose your next read based on your mood and any themes or topics that you're interested in. Before that, I had a couple of other entrepreneurial ventures and I worked for a year and a half at a company called Pivotal Labs, which doesn't really exist anymore. It's been acquired a couple of times. And before that, I studied philosophy, politics, and economics at university, Oxford in the UK, and I was heading down the investment banking track before diverting into software. And I live in London in the UK.
Super. Thank you for that brief but clear introduction. And I want to kick it off on this note, looking at my very planned questions. So the first one here is, can you share the story behind your journey to becoming a one-woman dev and what inspired you to embark on this challenge, right? Because I want you to start from the very origin story, like Genesis, the story graph, everything. Please don't leave anything be out. As much as you want to share, just give it to us.
I mean, I could easily talk for the rest of the hour with that kind of question. So what I'll do is I'll do high level, and then any aspect that you want me to dig into some more, I will do that. So I will just say that from being a teenager, maybe even around the age of 12, I guess, I feel like I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always been fascinated by business and just this idea that um, someone could create something from an idea or from a passion and both make a life for themselves, a living for themselves, while also making other people, other customers happy. And I've always just been into that. It seemed like problem solving, a way to just like challenge yourself on many different aspects, whether that's working with customers, being technical, just building a community, so many different aspects. So I've always been drawn to that. Growing up, my parents, just as traditional, Nigerian parents would do, pushed me into certain careers or suggested, particularly my mother, be a doctor or, be a lawyer or that kind of thing. And I, for a while, until the age of about 14, I think, thought, yeah, okay. Even a bit later than that, I was still, even when I discovered I had an interest in economics and current affairs and things like that, I was still making sure that I had subjects necessary to divert into medicine if I needed to. But I did ultimately realize that it wasn't my passion through conversations with different people. And so I moved more into the economic space when I started studying it at the age of 16. And that's when I discovered the philosophy, politics, and economics course at Oxford and at other universities in the UK. And so I was then heading down that track. And I still, though, the other thing that I'd been kind of encouraged to look into was investment banking. And so throughout my university career or my time at university, I was heading down the investment banking route. So I did all the kind of internships and all the sort of programs that you could do, and I had a job lined up to at Deutsche Bank immediately after I graduated. But I remember that even though I secured the job from the internship that you do between your second and final year at university, I remember just still being disappointed and feeling like I wasn't fully happy. I wasn't fully excited about about my next step. And I'd met a lot of people at university who were doing their own thing, running their own companies, social enterprises, charities. And I just felt drawn to them and felt like that was the kind of thing I should be doing. And so I applied for an entrepreneurship program and I got to the final stage. While I didn't make it, they were piloting a coding course for women. It was called Code First Girls. And I won a place on that course. I remember at the time thinking, I mean, I know I want to be entrepreneurial, but I don't think I want to be a developer. Like, that's not for me, or I had a stereotypical idea of what a developer was. But I ended up doing that part time course and working at my university in the summer, just choosing to turn down the banking job. And then I saw a competition for a 3 month software boot camp. And at that point, I'd realized how effective and helpful having technical skills were. And so when I won that competition, I decided to take the place of the coding course. So this was September of 2013, it would have been. And while this was going on, so from when I was doing the banking internship up until the time when I'm doing the coding course, I was running an online creative writing publication called The StoryGraph, which was just a way to, it was short stories written by university students around the world with custom art produced. And I started it because I'd always loved reading, but I didn't find time to read novels. And so me and a friend, another avid reader, said, well, why don't we, if only there were more amazing short stories out there. And so we started this publication. And obviously, that meant that we didn't even get to read as much as we wanted to because we were too busy running the publication. But that was also a taste of me starting something and running something. And I knew that that was the kind of thing I wanted to do. After the boot camp, I decided to go for getting a software job because I realized that I still had a lot more to learn. That's how I ended up working at Pivotal for a year and a half before I left with a colleague to start a business. That didn't end up going so well. The partnership didn't really work out. And so I left that business. But because we'd had a lucrative banking contract, I ended up with 5 years of runway. I spent a year of that runway working with another friend, a really close friend of mine, on her company startup, and we tried to build a product out of it. That ultimately didn't work out either. And so I found myself at the beginning of January 2019 with 4 years of runway and two project ideas that I've always been wanting to work on. One was a running app that auto generated running routes for you. And another one was a reading lists app where you could um, just create reading lists and either track them privately or share them with friends and have a fun dashboard to view them all on. And the reason why I had this idea was because I used Goodreads. It was one of my top apps that I used, top websites, but you didn't have the ability to create private reading lists. You could create either shelves or publicly collaborative reading lists, but you couldn't just create private ones. So it was just a side project that was intended to be a companion app to Goodreads, if anything. And then when I started working on this product, it was just so exciting, and I saw the potential there. And I started speaking to friends, people, book bloggers, and things like that to see if there was a way that I could build a company or a business within the book space. And that's how my side project grew into a fully fledged book tracking and recommendations app. So that's like the condensed high level version of the journey. And then the side project was originally called Read Lists, but then once it expanded in scope and I still had this entity called the StoryGraph, um, I then took that name and used it for the product I was working on. And I will say, when I shut down the e-publication, because I had a company that was called the StoryGraph Limited, and my mum, she'd always loved that name, and she said, make sure you don't give up the name because I feel like you could use it for something at some point because it's such a great name, and here we are. It's now my company. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Some key points for me was how, like, earlier on, you never had an intention to even get into tech, wanted to do something different. But here you are doing amazing stuff, and I'm really inspired. So I, as a great storyteller, because of course I've seen your conference talks, like, how do you think storytelling has played in your role and success in building the story graph as a product?
Yeah, I'm really big into storytelling. I think it's a super powerful tool to one, to engage people, to teach people. So I try and do that with my technical talks, as you saw with my debug talks. But it's also a great way to build relationships and community. And so I think one of the main ways that storytelling has helped StoryGraph success is just generally sharing the story. Um, as I've been building it, I've been very transparent from the beginning. So I started the Instagram account before I even had the product. And I was just engaging with other readers and sharing with them what I was reading, explaining that, oh, I have an idea, I'm just trying to flesh it out. So building community that way. I started a newsletter, which started with 100 people that I'd spoken to over the first few months of working on the side project, and has grown to about 4,500 subscribers now. And again, that was just weekly, and now it's every other week, but just explaining behind the scenes what I'm working on, being very honest and upfront about when I was stuck, when I was concerned that the product might only be a nice to have, and might not be compelling enough to stand on its own 2 feet. Talking about just concerns being a solo dev, and just all the challenges we've had as the company's grown. And I think also just through giving talks and doing things like this and sharing my story, Rob, my co-founder who's listening as well, his story and how he came into it. It is a great story, and I think people hearing it as well, they can see we're a tiny team. It's only Rob and I full time. We're working really hard day in, day out, and that really helps build a loyal, engaged, invested community. So, for example, whenever I felt that we've been moving slowly because we've been working on a tricky feature, I'm always worried about our users thinking, what's happening on StoryGraph? Nothing's happening. But all we get is people saying, like, take your time. We know you must be working on something great, or we know how small the team is. Like, and we know, like I've been here since the beginning, and I see that you're always bringing out great stuff. So storytelling has also helped to build a lot of trust between us and our users, and that's really been amazing, because then they always are open and honest with us with feedback, which helps us to then further improve the product.
Yeah, it's really great when you have like a story, right? Because like I said, your talk is mesmerizing because of the way you weave it with stories, and also applying that to building a product and to your users. You have this sort of connection because you're always upfront with what's happening, what you're building, why you're building it, and why it's fun for you. And I feel it sort of played well for StoryGraph maturing from just a newsletter to like a full-on reading recommend reading recommendations app, which is amazing. So yeah, thank you. I'm going to be learning a ton of storytelling from just watching you, reading what you do and your talks. So thank you for sharing, Nadia. So you mentioned something about development. Let's drill into that a little bit. How do you do this, right? Because you're the solo dev on your team. Of course, you have a personal life, and how do you manage to balance your personal life, self-care, and the demands to be in the just only dev on your team? How do you do that? Because at this point, I feel with the numbers you have, you probably need a team. But what makes you keep it small, and how do you manage to do all this?
Um, I'm a big. I think balance is key. And when I say balance, what I mean is I make sure, even though I work hard, I work every day, at least a little bit, depending on what's happening in my life. Um, I always have stuff that are important to me and that look after my mental, physical, and emotional health. So what I mean is, first of all, reading. I read every day, so I haven't. If anything, working. People often ask me, since starting StoryGraph, has your reading tanked? Nope, it's doubled, tripled in some cases. So I read a lot more. I make time for reading every day. I'm in the gym 3 times a week. I dance at least once a week. I do at least one dance class, sometimes several. I make time for friends and family. I make time for me. I always make sure I've got some alone time in the week. Rob and I, he's in California, but we're like always on a video call. So it's like we have a virtual office, and we have, as much as we're always working, we also have lots of fun downtimes too. So and there's a lot of fun in my life, and I enjoy my work, which is also very important. So there's a lot of fun in my life, a lot of things I enjoy, including my work, which is very valuable. And then in terms of just like not getting, then another thing people assume about me is they might say, oh, I bet you're working all the time. You're in terms of like all nighters and that kind of stuff. And actually, no, I'm very structured with my sleep in general. So I try and be offline an hour before I'm in bed. So that's 10 p.m. And I try and get 7 hours from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. because it's just a knock-on effect. Once you've got the sleep down, you wake up positive, and you can crack on with the rest of the day. So that's another key thing. It's like actually prioritizing sleep. And then I try and just have structure to my days in general. So each week I plan the week, I plan what my goals are for the week. And I was actually doing a podcast interview yesterday, and the host, it was Robbie Russell on the Maintainable podcast. He asked me, because you're a solo dev, do you find yourself sometimes losing focus or going down rabbit holes and maybe working on a feature that's not necessarily super important? And I said sometimes there might be a small thing that maybe I don't need to work on that yet. But I said one of the main things is I often communicate with Rob what my goals are for the week or what my priorities are for that day. And just the exercise of knowing that I'm going to report to him of what I'm working on. Even though like he basically trusts what I'm working on, but even just the exercise for me of knowing that I'm going to tell him what I'm working on is an exercise in making sure that the reasoning for working on it makes sense, the reason why it's prioritized makes sense. So that's a way of making sure that I stay focused on what I'm working on. And then each day I just time box, I'll time box dev time. I have my morning routines of knowing, okay, these are the things I need to check in on StoryGraph. And then we've also got Abby who works for us part time, and she does a range of things in terms of customer support tickets, any kind of admin manual tasks that I need doing, I can get her to help me out. And so that means that also saves my time and gives me more time to focus on development, and the product management and the social media stuff that I do. So yeah, basically it's making sure I've got the stuff outside that looks after me. It's very helpful that I love what I do. I love my product, and I'm very excited to just keep improving it. I have a great team, a great co-founder, and then it's structure and schedule and routine and sleep.
Yeah, you can, you know, when you were talking about sleep, I was just thinking about how I also get this sort of opinion that I most people think I work all the time, which is false. I like to prioritize sleep. No, when I was starting out, I did not do that, but I find out that the more I grow in my career, the more I prioritize resting, taking personal time, and sleeping. Because for me now, quality over quantity of hours is what I aim for. Because I feel when you have enough brain juice for being totally rested, you get to do more stuff quickly, and you are present, right? So you could spend literally an hour with complete focus. This is something that might have taken you distracted out because of you lack sleep, you're juggling too much, you do not know how to balance your time. So I feel that's a good takeaway for devs or
Hmm.
entrepreneurs where you're building stuff. Prioritize sleep, right? Like I've taken a nap this afternoon, really. Like I think I slept for like 2 hours, I woke up recharged, and I feel
Yeah.
that myth of all nighters is just a total myth. At the long run, you're going to harm your health, which is not worth it. So you spending time to prioritize personal health is always a good one. And I love the fact that you dance and you also take time out. That's amazing, Nadia. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, because since I've started Storygraph, I haven't actually, people will say, oh, you haven't taken a holiday. You haven't, like, there's been very minimal days where I've done no work. And that could be, whatever reason, travel, things like that. But the thing is, I don't feel like I need a holiday because I have pockets each day for me, within a day. And so it's kind of like when people talk about, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's that kind of thing where because I've got these other aspects and I'm just trying to maintain my health and well-being first and foremost, it means that so far, and hopefully this doesn't change, I'm not at risk of burnout. And so I can keep doing this for years and not feel like I need a holiday or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that also resonates with me. We in trouble where I work, we have a lot of holiday slot, and I'm just looking at it. I'll be like, I probably not gonna need any of these because I do know when to take the time off and just say, hey, yo. And because it's remote, I could do my work anytime I like, and we actually prioritize the value you're giving out, either than just crunching time because you don't always you're not always productive, even if they keep you on the laptop for like 9 to 5, but you know your pocket of time, you could manage yourself and to deliver good work. And I see how you've sort of like create a path like where you get to report to Rob, which keeps you committed, which is very good for accountability. I love it. It keeps you like prioritized, you know what you're going to work on. And also for transparency, Rob knows what you are on and how much time it's going to take and all that stuff. That's amazing.
Not not the last one. No, we never know how long it's going to take. I can estimate,
Oh,
but
yes.
I'm always no. I'm always very. You will know. I'm always years later. Nine. I've been a developer for 9 years. You for some reason I'm still so what's the word? Ambitious, optimistic with estimates. And yeah, there's always stuff that crops up, especially as the surface area of the app gets bigger, and there are there are many different, and the user base as well. The size of the user base means there's a lot of some edge cases to handle. So yeah, but still always have a rough estimate whether it's accurate or not. My current thing right now with Rob is I'll say something and then we'll say, okay, let's just multiply it by 3. So if I say an hour, let's just say 3. If I say a week, let's just say 3 weeks. And so far that's working well for us.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you on that note. Estimating time is one of the hardest problem in stuff like this, and I totally believe that. But I feel it's your cadence seems to be working, and yeah, I try to under promise and over deliver because I feel it just makes more sense that
Mm.
I just so you don't come at me be like, you did say we're gonna do this today and it's not done. I'll be like, yeah, wrong estimate. But when I give like some leeway, I find out that it's always in the pocket somewhere. You just have to match,
Hmm.
just have to meet. But it works most of the time. So we are going to drill into the technical side of you a little bit before I come out to the more entrepreneurial side. So what is the story graph built on, if you don't mind?
I mean, yeah, we're built on Rails essentially. It's very straightforward. That's the thing. Ruby Rails, the standard JavaScript, and HTML, CSS, and that's what it is.
Amazing. You know, when I saw you were using Ruby Rails, I was really happy because the Rails community has a unique spot in my heart because of DHH and the entire Basecamp team. I love how Basecamp build product, and I was really excited. It was really excited to see how that is playing out for you. And there's this um sentence you made in one of your talk. It said, "Lean into mature, stable, and boring technologies." That really struck to me because I'm all in for mature, stable, and boring because the tech I still use is really old sales. It was influenced by Rails, but for JavaScript. So I want you to talk about that. Like, what do you mean when you say lean into mature, stable, and boring technologies?
So that uh, sentence that you took from that talk is it was part of me. The talk was about what do I think the 3 pillars to success are for bootstrapped companies. And I said that, there's luck involved and luck can go your way, cannot go your way, but there are 3 things that you can control to increase your chances of success. And the first pillar that I spoke about was leaning into keep the tech simple, it was. And that meant leaning into stable, mature, boring technologies. When you're starting a company, starting a product, there's a high chance that it's going to fail. Like the numbers say something like 90% of things fail. And so you want to um, get yourself in a position where you can move fast, test things quickly and cheaply, and iterate. Sometimes as developers, some people might know there's this, you can feel like, particularly in the JavaScript space, which I know you are in, Kelvin, like it can feel like there's a new tool, a new framework coming out every day, and this is the new thing that you have to learn. And it can feel a pressure to developers to pick up a new tool, or if you're doing something, starting out with something, someone might say, "Oh, this is the best platform if this is your problem," or "This one is instead, or you should use this," and everyone's got opinions. But ultimately, these are all distractions because when you're starting something new, you don't have any scaling issues. You're not quite sure what you're going to build yet because you haven't done enough customer research. And you probably know something as a developer, you probably have one tool or language that is very mature, it's very stable, and you're fast at it because it's what you know. And so for me, that was Rails. And I believe that any kind of startup idea I came up with, like 90% of them, I'm just throwing a number out, I could prototype in Rails because all I want to do is just test the skeleton, test the framework. And so what I mean is if you have if there is a technology that you're familiar with, and that you know, it doesn't matter if it wouldn't be the best tool for the job if you get to 1 million users. Doesn't matter. You don't have any users right now. So lean into what you know, lean into what's seen as stable, what's boring, what people might say, oh, it's dead. Because the other thing about stable, mature technologies is they've got the most docs out there, they've got the most Stack Overflow posts, they've got established community members who, you might be part of the community already, so you might have people to help. These are all things that just help you move fast and just take one roadblock out of the path of what's going to be a difficult road to try to build something that people want.
Yeah, definitely. You see, this has been my plight in the JavaScript ecosystem because, of course, the entire web dev industry knows to be notorious for bringing out a new thing every other day. And I made it a conscious decision to lean into borrowing technologies that really work, not to be like always going for the next shiny object, right? And it has really worked out for me because I've been using, like, I think the Node.js version of Rails, which is Sales, because for me, it was conscious. The thought I had in my head was JavaScript is the language I love, right? Just like you love Ruby. And it's an
Mm-hmm,
unfair advantage to have JavaScript across the stack. So why not make it simpler and then just pick a boring tech that works like sales and just build stuff in? And also for the front end, there's another boring tech, Vue.js, boring but powerful.
mm-hmm,
And then I went ahead to, like, because in the JavaScript space, we love single page applications, right? And just JavaScript for the routing and blah blah blah. I decided that this is not going to make me move faster as a solo dev, right? So I wanted a way to piece both the back end and the front end, and it would have seemed to be like a no-brainer since everything is written in JavaScript. But why can't we do this right now? And then I found out Inertia, which allowed me to piece both the front and the back end. And I made a stack. My thing that works in a boring way, and that's what salescast.com is built in. Copy 2.0 is also going to be built in the same tech. It's boring, but it's more sure. It have years of experience built into it. And I feel for entrepreneurs, having this sort of solid tech that you could prototype on quickly is just an unfair advantage because you need to test, you need to validate, you need to get feedback, and to getting feedback, you have to move quickly. I can literally make a change on Salescast right now and push it. It's live in like so easy because the tech is old. I'm using it for 5 years now, and I know the ins and
mm-hmm,
outs. So I believe knowledge of the tech is much more important. Like deep knowledge is much more important than it being advertised as, it's going to solve a problem you don't really have quite yet because they're not at the scale of the people
mm-hmm,
who built it in the first place, but you don't know that because it's a shiny object. So I think it's a good point for people to lean into this mature and growing tech because most of the biggest apps and products we use, they are built on mature and growing tech. Like good old
mm-hmm,
MySQL, good old Rails. Look at GitHub, right? Built on this tech, it's
mm-hmm,
working. And at the end of the day, the user doesn't really care, like, which is what I'm always preaching about.
mm-hmm,
They just want the value. Come in and go out, do
mm-hmm.
do what they need to do and just go. Right?
You just said it there. Yeah, the user doesn't care. If they just want it to work and be fast. And I even say that in my talk. I actually feel so lucky that Rails was the platform that was taught at my boot camp and focused on, and that's the community I entered. Now it's a lot more JavaScript focused, the same boot camp that I went to. And I'm just lucky that when I entered the industry, it was Rails that was being pushed because it's such a great prototyping platform.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm all in for that. Rails is amazing. I love boring tech. Yes, I've said it. And so yeah, I think this lead also to another key statement you made that I picked out, of course, about some weeks now. I'm proud of it. So it says you can take simple tech all you want, but if you're building something nobody wants, you're going nowhere. Let's talk about that.
Did you say I should talk about that? I was laughing,
Yeah,
so I
for
didn't
sure.
hear what
Let's
you said.
let's let's lean in on that. Let's talk about why.
Okay. Yeah, so you could build anything, right? And if your goal is to run a successful product, it doesn't matter how flashy it is, how slick it is, how great it looks. If people don't need it, or they don't want it, then your user base will not grow and you're going nowhere. Um, and that I use that statement as a way to stress the importance of proper customer research, and that's the second pillar in my talk. So the first was keep the tech simple, keep the tech simple, and the second was keep talking to customers. And so the point is, you need to learn how to talk to customers properly in a way that you actually find out what they think, what they need, what they don't need, such that you can use that to then keep iterating on your product. And if you don't do this, and if you don't learn how to do this, so if you don't learn how to talk to customers without asking leading questions, without not really listening to them and taking your own conclusions because you really want to build this feature and surely everyone thinks the same, if you don't do that, then you are going to end up with something that nobody wants. And I remember that, I had this idea, the side project I mentioned, I had that idea for years, years. And one of my closest friends, we were gonna work on it together. We had a backlog. And that first week that I spent working on it, when I realized, oh, I would really love to build something in the book space, I was so excited about this product. But my first round of customer interviews that I did, I could see that the reception was lukewarm. And I remember at that point saying to myself, well, what's more important? Building this side project that you've always dreamed of, even if no one else uses it but you, or trying to find a product in the book space that can thrive and be something that a lot of people want to use. And I decided it was the second thing. And so I went into customer interviews being prepared to really hear what people were saying, even if the conclusion was, Nadia, there's no space in the book tech or book app space. There's nothing more to build. Look somewhere else. I was prepared to walk away. And I think whether it's your whole idea or a feature, when you go into custom interviews, if you want success, you have to be prepared to walk away, i.e., oh, actually, this feature, we don't need it, or actually, there's no space in this market, or this idea isn't a good one. And so, yeah, you've got to decide, what do you want? Do you just want to build your idea or build your feature at all costs, or do you want to have success? And just to stress again, even if you follow the pillars, it doesn't mean you will find success. It just means that you are increasing your chances. So if you're using mature technology that you're familiar with, and if you're continually talking to customers and talking to them in effective ways, then you're just increasing your chances of success. And there's a book that I always recommend as a good starting point for thinking about how you might want to talk to people, and it's called The Mum Test by Rob Fitzpatrick.
Oh, if you have the time, you might actually help us in commenting the link to Amazon or even on the StoryGraph for us to go grab one. And a quick side note, there are some customers of the StoryGraph in here listening, and they are so glad StoryGraph is based on Rails, and they are users of the StoryGraph. So that's amazing too. Um, yeah,
Amazing.
it's
Hi,
yeah.
everyone.
Just a quick refresh in the room. Please, you all do share the space. This is amazing. Nadia is giving out real gold, you all, and I am loving it. You see, you said something I liked, which is you were prepared to walk away, and that's something. You see, I think most developers, probably myself included, would be like, "It's my thing. I am proud about it. Come hail or whatever, I'm still gonna keep at it." But you were prepared to walk away, which is sort of like a good mindset to have, because you are in full gear. I want to serve my customers, right? I want to serve my users. I need a user base. If there is no user base, you're prepared to walk away. And which is something I see most developers don't do, in the sense that they sort of want to build in a vacuum, assuming they are soothsayers and they can read the mind of the users. They know what's best for the users. But you really don't, right? But when you marry your thoughts, the idea of what you want to build, of course, scratch your own itch. Most of my favorite products I build are from scratching my own itch, or what I want to see, and the chances of other people having the same itch is also gonna be there, because I'm not that unique. There are people gonna have
Mhm.
the same problem that I have, and they're gonna love it. It's what led to Copy, it's what led to salescash.com. And I see that the same for you, in the sense that you're building something that you're going to use, and
Hmm.
it aligns with your users, and that's brilliant. And I love it. So what should be in focus more than the tech you choose is the actual people you're serving, right?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point in that I hear that whenever I had side projects, I would always think, oh, if I have this problem, someone, there'll be other people out there who have it too. But I think it depends on the scale that you want your product to grow to. And there was a period in Storygraph's history where I didn't feel like I identified with the user of my product, but I saw that there was a need there, and I chose to serve those people rather than to serve myself. So what do I mean? In the earliest days, a lot of startup wisdom says, try and find a niche audience, a very specific audience to start with, even if you think the thing that you're building could be for everyone. Because if you're starting with everyone, where do you start? So I had been, trawling the books community on Instagram, which is called Bookstagram, and I noticed that there was a lot of people who were identifying as mood readers, and they seem to always be struggling to decide what to read, settle on the next book. And this is when I thought, ooh, this is my niche. This is my entry point. Let me focus on serving the mood readers. And I did not identify as a mood reader at this time. I was like, no, I just read. I know what I want to read next. I read it. I always finish it. And that's that. I didn't identify with people who would pick up, 5, 10 books and read the first page of each to decide and then put it down and stop and DNF books very quickly. That wasn't me. And so there was a period of Storygraph's history where it even made me concerned because I thought, ooh, I'm building a product that's not really for me. But I trusted the process and I said, well, ultimately, the vision is a reading tracker and book recommendations app for everybody. But you need to start somewhere. So if you can serve these people well, these people who are very indecisive about what they want to read, they feel like they have a multitude of options. If you can help these people choose a book, then you can help anyone choose a book. And through working with the mood readers and continually talking to them, that's when I developed the hypothesis that's behind the StoryGraph product, which is really everyone's a mood reader. It's just where you are on that scale. Because then there are books that I've read that I didn't enjoy. And it's likely just because I was not in the right headspace for it. I wasn't in the mood for it. And I've seen that more recently now. I've picked up books by authors I really like, and I know the book is great, but I'm just not feeling it that much. So it's even just made me think about readers and myself as a reader differently. But yeah, you're right in that a key part of Storygraph success is that we put the customers first. Even when, I mean, there are so many times when, Rob and I, we'll have an idea or we'll deploy something or we'll think a certain way, but the feedback that we're getting suggests that the customers think differently, and we always just prioritize that. And it's within reason. You have to have some sense of what your product's vision, ethos, mission is. You have to have some boundaries, because otherwise you'll just end up following the crowd, and the crowd is, they can take you in all different directions, and you end up with a poorly scoped product that doesn't really appeal to anybody. So you still have to have some boundaries and be firm in some elements of your vision. However, within that, you have to be prepared to listen to your customers and then iterate on that.
Of course. I love everything you said, especially listening to the customer. I feel we don't do that enough in web dev. And I really, really am grateful that you took that approach with StoryGraph, and how you focus in on a particular subset of the entire readers spectrum, which are the mood readers, and you made something for them first, and then you were able to expand out to like everyone is a mood reader, right? And that makes a whole lot of sense. Instead of you trying to like serve everybody, it's a good place to start, right? Like salescast.com started with wanting to serve just sales developers, people who want to build with sales. But right now we've expanded to like JavaScript in the community, where we like do all these workshops and help people that are learning JavaScript just learn it. Because at the end of the day, for me, so far you're using JavaScript, doesn't matter what flavor, you're welcome, right? And it's all JavaScript we love. It's still going to be JavaScript all the way. So thank you for sharing that, Nadia. You mentioned something about scaling. I really want to go there right now. So,
Mm-hmm.
what was the most significant obstacles you faced in scaling? Because you're at 1 million users. I'm never close to that right now with self-service.
Hmm.
Um, how do you overcome them? Also, taking in context, you are a one dev team. So, how are you catering with 1 million users on your platform?
So I should be clear, we're actually at 1.6 million registered users. But we have 4 to 5 million, 4+ million unique users every month, because you can use StoryGraph without having an account. So it's millions, it's several millions, and we have like a million page views a day. So I just want to make the about 110 million requests a month. I just want to make the scale clear. Um, and so scaling comes in many different forms. So one is obviously there's the web dev side. There's also the infrastructure side. So both Rob and I, through building the product, so we had our first big spike in June of 2020. We've both had to learn and figure stuff out together, because it's just us two building the product and doing the infrastructure. And we have not, we have never, we've always been part of bigger companies, bigger teams. So I think the scariest scaling issue we had, I think the scariest one was the first ever one, where we went from 1,000 to 20,000 registered users in the span of 3 days. And this was because both, so Rob does all the machine learning side of things, and so he's got his own system set up, but he also manages our infrastructure as well, and all of our servers. And so uh, back then we both on each of our sides had things that we needed to do to be able to handle hundreds of simultaneous users, whereas before we maybe had like 5 simultaneous users. So that involved restructuring how our systems and machines were set up, but it also involved like um, rewriting bits of code that maybe didn't worked in a very sequential way, or just a non-performant way. And a lot of it was uh, Googling, trying to figure out how people have solved this problem before, experimenting, just reading through the code and realizing, okay, how do I make several of these happen at the same time? But the main thing with scaling up is not necessarily, there's only so much you can optimize the code. Very quickly, we ran into database scaling issues, and this was very scary for us, because we had not had this issue before, and the app was just slowing down, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. And we thought, okay, if we just throw money at the problem, so keep upgrading our database, we'll be fine. But we couldn't, it wasn't working. And that's when we just kept on looking at the logs and figuring things out. And we started to learn about um, IOPS, and essentially how many read or writes per second can happen on a database. And so that's when once we had an understanding of that, that's when we realized, oh, okay, this is this is why this is happening. This is the plan we need to be on. This is how we need to restructure our code and the number of workers we have, and all of that jazz. So that's the database scaling, and learning about that has been one of our biggest challenges, which we're on top of now. And also another one is around what am I thinking? Like just workers. So just things like process threads and all of that kind of stuff we had to figure out, and how many web servers we have, and how many threads each of them have. And so these are standard scaling issues that everyone has. More recently, we ran into issues with scaling Elasticsearch. So having our first case of needing to shard our indices, things like that. So the scaling challenges have been they've been some of our scariest moments. It's been fascinating to learn about this stuff and to know more places to look when things go wrong. But yeah, it's been, because it is so I'm saying there's been two sides of our scaling. The main ones that I've dealt with are on the web app side. Rob's dealt with a bunch on the infrastructure side. We've worked together a lot on them. So even though Rob is not a web or app developer in the same way I am, he's technical, incredibly technical, so I can have conversations with him and he can put me in the right direction, and vice versa if he's ever stuck on anything. And between the two of us, between our conversations, pairing, Googling, we've just figured everything out. And sometimes it's taken 2 weeks, sometimes it's taken an hour, but we always just figure it out, and we don't really have anyone else. I mean, I say we don't have anyone else. We do. I have some great friends in the community who have helped me in the past, but we try and avoid that. I mean, everyone's got their work, everyone's got their own businesses. We're running this small team. It's on us to kind of sort stuff out, and we just always persevere and manage to figure out the issues. And something that gives us comfort whenever we're stuck is that we can't be the first person to ever have had this problem. There must be a solution. We're going to figure it out.
Yeah. Um, I'm a big fan of the I can figure it out mindset. And you mentioned, and you all should, I just want to restate it. Nadia is over tens of millions of users and she's still Google. Who am I not to Google? Uh, so yeah, you never know it all. You're always learning new things, and a scaling problem is a good problem to have. I'm waiting for the time where I have
Yes.
that problem. That's a great problem. And sometimes we optimize too quickly and we tend to move too
Yeah.
slowly because we're trying to get to where we're not even sure we're gonna get to anyways. But I love a scaling problem. It's one I'm looking forward to having. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. So that's amazing. Yeah, ah, a lot. You have a ton of users, and I'm really mesmerized by that fact.
Thank you.
For sure. So, I have 10 more questions, but in order to cut this out, I'm gonna ask just two. I'm really looking for the first two. All the questions are so good. Uh, but
We could do a quick fire
okay,
if you want, where it's like I just answer in like 2 seconds, like a 10-second quick fire
okay.
response.
You asked for it. Yeah, I come. What
Let's
what key
go.
lessons or takeaways from your experience would you like to share with developers and entrepreneurs striving to grow their user base?
Keep the tech simple, keep talking to customers, and keep your costs low. Those are the three pillars from my talk. Essentially, the key one is keep talking to customers. And then if you keep the tech simple and you keep the cost low, you get to have more chances at iterating to get to success.
Awesome. Nailed it. Next, as a successful web developer, what are some essential skills and tools that you believe for folks entering tech they should focus on acquiring?
I think it's just good having a base level of everything. So I identify as a full stack developer too. So have a backend language, be conversant with basic JavaScript, HTML, CSS. Um, yeah, and yeah, essentially just be able to just be a little bit dangerous with the full stack. You don't need to know everything because you can Google, and then you'll be able to just prototype cheaply on your own.
Awesome. This really marries well with the workshop I just had today on full stack dev. Next rapid question. What advice would you give to no, let's skip that one. Um what who were your role models when you were learning how to code? Like people you looked out to, women, men, whatever, like that inspired you to be a great developer that you are right now.
Um, I think no one in particular is coming to mind. I think in general, I've just always been inspired by entrepreneurs in general, people doing their own thing. And I've just felt inspired to equip myself with technical skills so that I could do that for myself. And I think in general, at my boot camp, just being inspired by the people around me, the career changes. There was one woman who I remember was in her 50s or something, or late 50s or early 60s, and she was changing careers and seeing young people. I just love, I think it's just an inspiring field to be with, because it doesn't matter where you come from, what your age is. You can have a goal or a dream or a project, and you are empowering yourself to be able to work on it. And I think that's just it, being inspired. I'm inspired by being in the community.
Perfect. I love it. So can you share an instance where user feedback has significantly helped shaped your product development? Just one instance.
Future product development. Okay, I can think one that comes to mind is pitching the product. So, Rob and I in general were very not, when we were selling our plus plan, we were kind of trying to focus on specific features, but we saw from the customer research that everyone kept on subscribing, and their number one reason was, I didn't even read the feature list. I just love that you're an independent Amazon free alternative to Goodreads. And it got to the point where we just said, you know what? Instead of shying away from this, instead of just trying to be like, oh, don't compare us to Goodreads, don't focus on the fact that we're indie, let's lean into it because this is really resonating with people. And so we started putting that front and center on our like landing page and on the plus page, which is that by subscribing to plus, you can be um, you can support an independent alternative to Goodreads, and that just really resonates with people. So that's something that has changed how we sold our plus plan.
Perfect. And I'm going to hold myself to not go further because I want to give you back your time as quickly as possible. So thank you so much. I believe this is an amazing session. I'm seeing a lot of claps and people are really resonating with what you're saying. I myself have had like a really awesome crash course. So thank you, Nadia.
Oh, thank you for having me, Calvin. This was a lot
Yeah,
of
for sure.
fun.
So before we wrap up, we're going to bring up folks who want to speak. So this is the Q&A session. Please come up, come ask Nadia. Don't be shy. The opportunity. I don't have a million users. Nadia does. She has a ton of experience. So please come up. So we have Dan. Hey, buddy, could you unmute your mic and introduce yourself and go for your question?
Hey, I'm Dan, and I'm not shy. When there's a smart person
Hi,
I can
Dan.
learn from, I'm going to try asking questions. So, yeah, I'm super impressed. I mean, I've only been in VC-funded companies that are a little bit different than your story. I've always had products in the back of my mind that, oh, maybe one day I could build a company myself. I could do it. I've been a product manager for other companies, and being a product manager sort of feels like, oh, I'm putting all my emotions into someone else's product. What if I did it for myself? So do you have any advice on taking the leap? Like, at what point should I just suck it up and build my own product?
Immediately after this Twitter space is over. So I follow Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, on Instagram, and he has great content and he has great motivational content as well. And one of the things that he released on Jan 1st, he said people always ask me what is your key to success, and he said there's no secret, there's no key, but um, I always remember this thing someone told me. You can either be the one day person or the day one person. And you said it yourself, Dan, while you were talking. You said, one day I want to build my own product. And Dwayne said that I always strive to be the day one person. So rather than saying, one day I'm going to do this, today is day one. And that really resonated with me because that's how I try and approach things. I try and think, like, what's the quickest, cheapest, simplest way I could just get started? Let me spend 20 minutes doing a little bit of research, 20 minutes just hacking on a prototype. So I say today is the day. My advice is just get started, and you'll run into just you can start by uh, coming up with a to-do list for tomorrow, or if you already know what the idea is, try and code it out, or maybe put together a backlog. Just do one task today, and then do another task tomorrow, and you started. And then watch my talk for some ideas on how to approach customer research. Read the mom test, and there you go. So tweet at me after you've done your first action so that I know you've done it.
Thank you. I don't know if I don't know how ready I am, but
No, you
You
have to
have
do
to
it.
do it.
You have to do it. No one's gonna know. Like, as in you, I'm gonna know when you tell me. But I mean, you saying you're not ready, you'll never feel
I
ready.
just I
You just have
I
to
just
start.
accepted a new job for someone else. What do I do?
Well, you had time to watch this or listen to this space, so I'm sure you can carve out
I
20 minutes
That's true. Although I
today.
will say I had the space
Exactly.
on while I was working. But you're right. I can make an action.
That's
You
fine.
are correct. Thank you for that. I'll. You want me to tag you when I do something? I'll tag you. I
Yes,
think that'll be fun.
today, please. Thank
Okay.
you.
So Dan, go do what Nike said. Just do it. And
Yep.
I think I took the same approach when I wanted to build Salescast. I did the smallest thing I could do, which is to write. So I started writing about it first. I created a community even before building the course platform. So I just took like what is the path of least resistance to get me started. And so the
Hmm.
starter is like having inertia, right? Which is Newton's third law. Like a body at friends, we don't want to move, all that stuff. But just give it a little bit of boost and you find yourself going the distance. So then Do just do it. Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to Dan's tweet at me later.
Yeah, of
I'm really looking
course.
forward to it.
I have an idea for something I can do.
Yes,
I have an idea. So
I'm
I'm gonna
excited.
tweet at
I'm
you.
excited. Tweet at me and Calvin.
Cool.
Awesome. So
We're looking forward to
Justine,
it.
please unmute your mic and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me up, Kelvin. This was a fantastic space. And thanks for sharing all your knowledge, Nadia. It was excellent.
Oh, thank you.
And before I get to my question, I just wanted to speak to what Dan said, and I love what you guys said to him in response. A lot of folks often think that like building is the first step. So even though you just took a new job or started something new, you don't have to start building. Like you could just, you have an idea, that's the first step. Just start calling people to see, is this something that you could potentially do? Is this something that there's interest for? And that doesn't take too long, like maybe doing a call a day or a DM a day or something like that. So, I could kind of hear the intimidation, or maybe it's not intimidation, but like uneasiness in your voice, because maybe you're thinking, oh, I have to start building something tomorrow. But yeah, you could just start like sussing it out. So yeah. But now to my oh, go ahead, Nadia. You were gonna say something.
No, I was going to say, yeah, great. What you said, I agree with.
Yeah. So my question now is, so you mentioned that you had an idea that you kind of started working on, and then you realize, okay, there's not really much interest in it out there, and then you really had this feeling that you wanted to do something related to book talk or bookstagram. I'm guessing you didn't have an idea at that time, right? So like, how did you go looking for an idea? You kind of mentioned that you went to Instagram, but is there anything else that you did?
Yeah, so to be clear, I knew that I wanted to build a product around books. It wasn't book talk, or book talk wasn't even a thing then. This was 2019. Like it's not that long ago, but book talk wasn't really a thing. Or maybe it was, I just wasn't aware. I don't think so though. And I only found out about Bookstagram after I said to a friend, I want to build a books product because I've had so much fun this last week. And she said, do you know there's a whole Instagram community? So what I did was I did a first round of interviews that was around this product that I built. And when I saw that wasn't working, I set up a second round of interviews with people, and this was with friends who I knew read, friends of friends, people on the Bookstagram space. And the premise of that interview was just to see if there were any pain points with people who read. So I just said, I think maybe I wrote a hypothesis that said something like, avid readers have an issue tracking their reading or something like that. So I interviewed about 5 people, and then I go into more detail in my talk around how I do the interviews, and it's still high level, but there's enough detail there. And if anyone has any questions, they can tweet at me afterwards. But then I realized after that first round, my takeaway was that, okay, so it seems that it's not really an issue tracking right now. It seems to be an issue finding consistently high quality recommendations. So then I dug into that. And then it was like, okay, it looks like, why are people struggling to find recommendations? Is there a new way? And that's when I started realizing, okay, it's moods. So I essentially kept on doing series of interviews with a different hypothesis, taking the learning from the last round and then applying that to the next round. So I always had a question, and then I wrote out a script that would help me figure out an answer to that question. And then I would use that. And I kept on doing that until I got to the point where I had an idea for an alpha app. So this is like a pre-beta, very basic app that was just a personal recommendation service. And then I kept on doing customer interviews, got to the point where the product simplicity was just hampering progress. And that's when I decided to build a more fully fledged beta app. So essentially, it was through, again, customer research and just continually having a hypothesis to test that enabled me to narrow down onto what was originally just a book recommendation app. And then I realized that that doesn't stand on its own if you want to build something that people use regularly. And so that's when I was like, oh, I don't need to help people find books to read all the time. I need to help them choose books to read. And that's when it comes down to put your to read in here. Let's see what you've already read and what you liked. And that's where the stats come out. So that's the development of it, that's the ideation of StoryGraph.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing, Nadia.
No problem.
Thank you so much, Nadia. Thank you, Justine. Two more questions. I'm going to give Nadia back our time. Augustine, Eze, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is a pretty amazing space. Thank you very much, Kelvin. Thank you very much, Nadia. I kind of came in late, but I wanted when I started hearing what you were talking about, I needed to just ask this question because currently I'm actually building, and these are some of the issues I face. Because at the moment, I just wanted to ask you: is there any specific way that you use to balance out like future developments with code maintenance? Because I know as your user base is expanding, there will be some changes to be made. The app is not really perfect. Things always improve, and there will be new improvements that will be coming out, maybe be it a future or making an already existing feature better. But I wanted to ask, how do you actually balance things out so that you don't go rolling out many features that maybe users don't really need? I don't know if you've answered this in the past. If you have, I'll probably watch your recording again. But I need to know about that.
No, I've not answered that question directly, and it is something that is always on my mind, balancing new features that need to come out and maintaining the old stuff. It was some months ago, it was the topic of one of my newsletters, like that trade-off. And I'm essentially, I feel like that tension is always going to be there, especially as a solo dev. I think I'm always going to feel I could be doing this, I could be doing that. And especially as someone who wants things to be as perfect and excellent as possible. So I always try and be on top of, if a bug means that a user, even if it's just one user, is seeing like a crashed page, always takes immediate precedence. And then in general, I try and sometime in the week, like I've had phases or routines where the first hour of the day is just bug fixing. Or I'll say, when I write up my goals, one of the goals for the week will be a bug maintenance. So I'm just always trying to make space for it. But ultimately, I've gotten to the point where I just try and prioritize bugs and features as one in a way. So if a bug if that's what we're hearing, a pain point, then that will be addressed first. But ultimately, if it's people need to be able to have this functionality and the bug is not really hampering anyone in the sense of stopping people from using the app, then it will be deprioritized. But I'm always trying to play around with carving out at least some dedicated bug maintenance time, performance improvements, things like that. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Augustine. Amazing questions. Finally, we have James Victor. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, Kelvin, thanks for having me on this space. Sean, thanks. I see all of you. Thanks for all you're doing for the tech community. My question to Nadia is like I've been here since the start of the space, and I've listened to your story, how you transition from a not a non-tech background to a tech background. So my question is like while transitioning from a non-tech background to a tech background, what are the major challenges you faced and how did you scale through them? Yeah, thank you.
I think because I mean, some people transition from non-tech to tech by getting a tech job, which I think is, scary, but people do it. And I think because I did it via the course and the boot camp, it was I was in a safe space for a lot of it. I didn't have a job that I needed to worry about, and I think that helped. I think, and also the first job I went into at Pivotal Labs, they were all about pairing. So I was always working with a more experienced developer. So I felt like I was lucky and I kind of had a safe spaces and a cushion into entering the tech world. I also think being technical has kind of it plays in I was quite mathematical. So even though I did philosophy, politics, and economics, most of the papers I chose were more on the mathematical, logical side, especially with economics. And then I'm also like quite creative, so I like to write, I like music, things like that. And I always felt like coding fit those two sides. I think ultimately, I think I had natural things like times where I felt, oh, am I good enough? Particularly when I went into my first job, And I think ultimately, if you get hired into a great company, or you're or you're at a boot camp, then the environment should be conducive to helping you work through those and getting over those. But I think I'll answer your question slightly differently, which is to say that if you know your why, so like why are you transitioning, then that's the thing that can just keep you going when you're stuck. So for me, I always knew I wanted to be entrepreneurial. And so even when I was like, oh, am I good enough for this? Or, this is hard, or what am I doing? I knew it was with this vision of one day I'm going to build a product. So whether you have a product you want to build, or you just want to get a tech job and you're transitioning from a non-technical space to technical and you're finding it hard, just remember that why, and that will keep you going even in times of tough. And that's been the same for even building StoryGraph, especially the first 9 months were completely solo and it wasn't clear that it was going to be successful. And even now, there are still moments, there are hard moments, there are tough jobs, there are non-fun things that I have to do. But I just remember the why is like the vision of the product, and enhancing the lives of avid readers and getting people into reading again. This is all really awesome. And so I think if you remember your why for why you're doing something, even when you have challenges, you can overcome them.
Okay. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you, Calvin, for holding this space. Thank you all.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, Nadia, I'm about to give you back your time. It has been an amazing hour plus. I loved it. And one of my visions for doing what I do is I want to see more builders on the web, people who are building businesses, who are entrepreneurial, and who can take another route other than having a job. It's okay to have a job. I do have a job. But if you can build, because the internet does not need any permission for anyone to build, or that's why it's so amazing. So I want to see more people build, and that's why this session of yours, this Twitter space I'm having with you, is very, it has a special place in my heart, because you are a living proof of this, of a person building on the web, not a massive team, but a massive mind and a massive vision for the book. And you did that. I love it. So thank you, Nadia. I appreciate you a lot. Please, everyone, follow Nadia. She's amazing. And Nadia, do you have a final words for us before we call it?
Yeah, thank you so much for this space. And I'm glad you revealed what your hope was with this space, because we know we've already got an extra person coming to join us soon, which is Dan. So I feel like we've hit the mission of the space. I've had a great time. It's been super fun. Thank you for all of your prep. Thank you for everyone who stayed tuned and listened and asked questions. I've had a really wonderful time. And yeah, I hope everyone just has a wonderful rest of your week. And don't hesitate to tweet at me if you have any questions about anything I said in this space.
Sure. Don't hesitate to do that. Tweet at me, tweet at Nadia, and also keep an eye for all these special guests. So I try to pick the best and the greatest. And yeah, if you want to see them like Nadia, give me a follow, keep an eye. And of course, it's going to be live on Spotify, Apple Music, and of course, YouTube for posterity. You can go watch it and go see Nadia's talk, especially our detective Sherlock Holmes streaming talk. You're going to love it. Our storytelling skill is top notch. It's perfect. All right. So
Oh,
thank you,
thank you,
everyone.
Calvin.
Yeah, for sure, Nadia. I appreciate you. So until our next space, see you all. Bye, everybody.
Bye.